So, welcome, Sydney, on our podcast. Let's talk about data. And you are far from here. You are in US. I think it's an end of a day for you. It's a midday for me.
Yeah,
So, yeah, welcome on board. And we will open floor for you to introduce yourself. Looking forward. Floor is all yours, Sydney.
awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm Sydney Gayle. As you mentioned, I am based currently out of San Diego, California. So it is later in the day, but, the story never stops. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here. I've spent the better part of my career consulting, but about 12, 13 years ago, I found a niche that really I didn't even know I was walking into that I've now been fortunate enough to become an expert in. Um, the the thing that brought me there was I was exploring different trajectories of my career, and a company called Stebo Systems, which is a very large PIM multi-domain MDM tool, was looking for practitioners, and so I saw many big brands on their roster. I had never, I had dabbled in Salesforce implementations and SharePoint and large data organizations, not really knowing, what this area would be. But I was fortunate enough, to jump in. So since then, I have been, as I mentioned, very fortunate to work with some very large brands across all different data domains, but really, really a lot of focus in the master data management, data governance, and all of the people and process elements that kind of go along with that area of expertise. I've been mostly independent consulting for the last 6 or 7 years. I've worked directly for companies as well as working for consulting firms,
Mhm.
helping them on the projects that they have engaged on. So, I now am working for a very large retail and manufacturing company of apparel, accessories, shoes, and footwear called VF Corp. And I'm currently responsible for their very large data migration for their new product experience master uh, program. So
Awesome.
here we are.
Yeah, awesome. Tell us about your TED Talk. I think you mentioned you are doing TED Talk. About that.
Yes, yes, yes. So one of my major goals this year is to take all of the knowledge that I've got, both as a person, as a mom, as a woman in data, and as a career person, just in general, as well as all of this unique experience around data, and share it with the world. Before the end of the year, I will speak on a very large TED stage. I don't know which one yet, but I'm excited. This is one of my first, public speaking on a podcast at this kind of juncture in my career. So, the reality is everyone is talking about data, whether they know it or not,
Yeah,
right?
I am.
I got a call from my mom a few days ago. Hey, I saw some AI course and I think I'm going to take it, right? Mind you, she was a database administrator and just retired, but doesn't know what I do. It's quite ironic. But the unique thing about where I've been fortunate enough to spend my career in data is I am at the forefront of helping companies to really establish what their data set is and who owns it and why do they own it, getting it out of spreadsheets and getting it into an actual process that can be governed, understood for the first time in some of these companies, 100-year history. They've just
Yeah.
always got it done. And so when I think of, what I'll be hopefully talking about over the course of this year, and, this is just the beginning. Hopefully I can one day be like Mustafa,
Nah.
and have some podcasts where I've got so many different accolades. But, I really see the work that I've done as an opportunity to make the world better. And I want people to understand because to me, really understanding helps people to appreciate why things work the way they do, whether that be at the grocery store or on a customer portal. I think people don't realize how much they engage with the day in and day out, data of an organization. And so I'll be talking about it throughout the year.
Awesome, awesome. And it is always lovely to talk with people who have a data background. And I've been very fortunate that most of my podcasts, 99%, are with those people which have data background. So for me, as you mentioned that everybody is talking about data, that was not true like 8, 9 years back before this big data buzzword came in, and they say "Hey, big data can do everything," and actually no, big data is just a name. You have to do all your stuff yourself, right? As you and me being in data industry for 20 plus years, people were least interested in data. They were always saying, build a portal for us, build an ERP for us, build a mobile application for us. They were not interested in the OLAP part, which is the analytics part and which can create value. And when this suddenly this big data came in, everything come into buzzword, limelight, and that is where we people like you and me become into limelight, and people are trying to get into it. And in the last 5 years onwards, odd years, hundreds of tools are coming into market, and as people still customer just want an output. And last time, as we had this enterprise data warehouses where we used to build it in 2 years, 3 years, so things were still in control, right? Because we had centralized team managing blah blah blah, and then bottleneck keeps coming in, but value were coming out. But now we are moving towards federated approach, where this agentic AI comes into picture, where everything becomes small and a lot, and that is where foundation becomes so important that actually only in 2026, just because of generative AI failed last year, and MIT says 85% project fails, people now started thinking towards governance and foundation. And I think that is where they're connecting us a lot to ask what to do. When the truth comes out, I think that is what our topic is. And when you make a decision, then regulatory bodies come and say, hey, prove us whatever you are saying is correct or not. So let me pull our topic for our audience, that our topic is from tools to truth, where data decisions actually breaks down. So this is a topic you selected. Tell us about why you selected this topic. And then I'm a solution architect. I have hundreds of questions I will ask you. Tell us about this topic.
Yes, yes, yes. So I was thinking of all different topics that I could really dive into. And where I found a very important place where there's a void is being able to help connect good solutions to the people who really need to use them, and it seems so simple.
Hmm.
Like, you step back and I'm like, there's no way that this is information that people need. But I can attest that I've been on many projects where it's a fire because they're 5 weeks away from UAT.
Hmm.
They've been demoing. We've got a solution architected to meet the requirements that we all generally understand, but the business just doesn't get it. They just cannot grasp what exactly we're delivering for them. Okay, so getting back to it. So why I wanted to talk about this topic is because I have noticed that there are many architects out there with great expertise in how to deliver pipelines in a scalable, fast, data models that serve purpose, data warehouses that have volumes of data, reporting, and like you mentioned, right? Lots of tools in the market. In my opinion, too many.
Yeah.
Right? Because the reality is, so many customers end up just going back to things like an Airtable or a spreadsheet when it comes to actually managing the data. Now, that is the where the business may end up residing, unfortunately. But the best solutions that I've been on and the best organizations who are doing the work have paused. They've instead of failing, they stall and allow somebody like you or me who can come in and really connect those dots,
Yeah.
really listen, and begin to provide that connection point, if you will. And so I got a couple of different stories, different areas of that I wanted to kind of dive into, and would love to talk to you on where you've hit these kind of roadblocks, and help organizations on how to push through them, or help practitioners to know kind of what are special things to bring to the table. So
Yeah.
yeah,
See, the challenge is, uh, we all know that the moment something becomes famous, non-practitioners start jumping into that practice. And that is what for me, I think that was the problem statement like 5 years back. Everyone and anyone who really who knows to write a SQL or a Python jump into data and become a data scientist or data architect. And these
yeah,
are one of the most complex and field which really defines how data should look like, right? And people start jumping in and they want to just create a product out of it. They don't understand the basics. I think that is what the challenge I am seeing everywhere, because the
yeah,
moment you give an Excel or you take an Excel from a customer to build something, non-data people, what they do is they either jump into a vibe code or throw it into a Gen AI chat, or they just, you know, create a graph and say, hey, this is what it is. Ideally, it is not the case. First, you have to find the entities within the data. For me,
yeah,
everything starts with an entity, and you have to join entities with it. So, same concept of nodes and links in information
yeah,
modeling. I think most of the organizations which are struggling is because they have spare parts. They do not know how to really connect those dots, right? And they are just
yeah,
picking up and just connecting. Hey, we built, it's a Lego world. We built something. What is this? Okay, we have built something. Okay, let's sell this. Rather than what customer need, what business need, and then join those Legos, people are just joining and trying to sell it. That is what I feel, that is what the issue is. And plus, this or Lego, all those Legos they throw into one centralized place. They don't categorize. They don't do this. That is what I'm referring to. A foundation that you
yeah.
have to sequence everything, categorize everything, and then build something. So these are the challenges I keep facing, and learning people like you. I've met so many. By the way, I've met around people from 35 plus countries like you, all
Wow.
industry
Yeah.
expert, and I learned every day this. Tell us your experiences, which kind of experiences you are facing at your customer end.
Yes. So before I jump into even this experience that's happening, like in my current, I do want to go back to a point that you brought up around,
And
there being practitioners in the industry who don't understand like the foundations of why we would do these things.
yeah,
I personally have struggled to describe who exactly I am. And because, you know, you interview and someone says, "Well, are you an architect?" Well, what is the definition of an architect to you? Because it could be data architect, it could be integration architect, it could be at the technical architect, all of those types of things. Are you functional? Like, are you business? And do you just do Jira and write stories? I'm like, I'm not quite that. So it's, but when I get on, when finally, it doesn't matter if I'm too technical or too business, and the person hiring me realizes there's something niche here that I need to bring into my project. When I get on the ground, it's as if I'm unlocking the technical resources and I'm unlocking the business resources. I don't need to know every nook and cranny of being
cool.
a finance person, and I don't need to know down to the code exactly how we're going to build the pipeline. But
Yeah.
but the key is being able to unlock all of those utilities and all of those people, because my experience is data projects are generally funded, right? The
Yeah.
ROI speaks for itself. Sometimes you've got four architects.
Yeah.
Like, okay, who's doing what here, right? So the key, though, I think that I agree with you. There's a lot of people in the industry who know how to do the lower level detail, but really having somebody or a SWAT team of people who can come in and really unlock those people to really leverage them is something that is a game changer. Let's just say, right? For those programs who really wanted to make it happen. Something to talk about in terms of just a current experience that I'm going through. We've got, as I mentioned, I'm currently working on a very large data migration. We're moving 4 or 5 different brands into a single solution that then is publishing out to all of the various pipelines. I think in addition to that, deploying a new process for creating new materials and creating new products. I'm brought in, I think, as the third or fourth practitioner around data migration, and honestly, I'm walking into just a circumstance of people not speaking the same thing to each other.
Yeah.
In other words, and I'll bring up an example. You've got the lady who's working day in and day out to try and improve data quality, but knowing that quality is actually not data migration, but it's been paid for, right? And the business executive has hired folks to improve the data. So we can't sit back and say, well, it's not in scope. No, it is in scope. It's just a matter of really defining exactly what our trajectory is and what success looks like. Because if you don't define that and get alignment, up front, the bar will just keep moving, or you won't be able to measure success, which again, I mean, going back to the core of all of this, the business needs to feel like this is going to be a success for them. And if you introduce things that are going to make, even if it's their data, in this case, the data is pretty bad that we're migrating. So be it. But if we move it into a new tool and we expose it without improving it, without giving a strategy for how to get there, we are essentially exposing, people just mustering through the job so far without necessarily having all of the data complete. So that's an experience that I've had recently, is just really coming in and getting alignment. And the irony is that alignment's actually ruffling some feathers because,
Yeah.
you've got the tech team who's on board that we're going live hell or high water. And then you've got, the people who are day in to day out trying to improve the data. And then you have an executive who's just wants it all done and tell me exactly what it is so that I can report effectively and not get, surprised. So it's a lot of fun. In the hiring, it was like, are you ready for a challenge? And I was like, that sounds like fun. For people like us, that's a challenge that we like to come in and do. So yeah.
Yeah. Actually, as you mentioning these proper way to do it, actually a year back, I've come up with a canvas. So it's not something new. People have different product canvases, information canvases. So I have come up with my own value discovery canvas. So there are 4 core dimensions. Each dimension has 4 sub-dimensions. So one of the key one, which I always say, that whenever you embark onto a journey, whatever product you are trying to make out of a tool or technology, you definitely is doing manual work, right? You're running your business, right? So you need to know how you are doing it. And when you're doing it, you always know what questions you want to ask, what answers you are expecting from that questions. Based on the answers, what actions you are taking, and based on the actions, what value you are generating. So these are one of these four sub dimension of one of the core dimension which I go towards any business and any sales guy, and I say, hey, if you are bringing a project for a solution architect to work on it, before we spend our time onto it, fill these dimensions, right? And then we actually, in this way, we become an and not a very favorable people in the company because people just want to start. And what we are
Yeah.
saying doing is we are cutting out around 80% projects. And I feel if you end up using, if C level end up using these kind of canvases, again, it can be my personal view is C11 can cut down 80% of the projects in their organization, which is not bad. Reason being, Gartner says 75% project goes on shelf. What is
Yeah.
mean by shelf? Shelf is a failure. It's another sexy name of not calling failure. It's just putting on
Yeah.
shelf, right? It is a failure, right? Nobody's using it. So you have to
Yeah.
reevaluate those things. So I'm bringing these canvas into multiple organizations. One of the organization has already accepted that, and they are going to reduce a lot of opportunities, leads to opportunity, right? So,
Yeah.
so which kind of challenges you are facing? Because this is a key topic for our data people to go into an organization and tell, hey, the 100% project which you are running, 80% is a crap. You are not going to be a acceptable person over there, right?
Yeah.
So which kind of experiences you are facing? Because once you go in, definitely you challenge, right? Hey, the way you are
Yeah.
doing is wrong, right? So how do you take these practices with you?
Yes, yes. So it's very touchy.
Right? Yeah.
1,000%, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because somebody has signed away their life savings and the commitment of whatever that project, or even if it ends up on the shelf, to them it went live. It doesn't matter to them what the legacy of it is, and
yeah,
it's really unfortunate. And it makes it so, and that it makes it so that data projects get a bad rap, in my opinion,
yeah, yeah,
because in business, they're the ones that witness this. Most IT organizations, their goal is to get live. What happens after that? There is
they
typically
don't
an
care.
adoption measure. There's nothing like that, right? I think I am finding that organizations are getting a little bit more conscious of the fact that adoption should be a critical success factor because there's only a finite amount of money, right?
Yeah,
And if there's wasted money on projects that'll never go anywhere, that's money that ends up with the chopping block, right? A lot of layoffs. I mean, I've witnessed organizations just who should have had that assessment or that analysis because now they are no more, right? Because they put all the eggs in the wrong baskets and thought that the funding would just continue and continue. And something that I would say, like if I were advising a client and you were bringing that to the table, saying before we get started, on getting you to a data maturity of XYZ with these different things, we need to look at what your priorities are, all of these. And the thing that I wanted to bring to this conversation was going through a 4 success factor kind of approach, because doing that work takes time. So how do I go ask these questions? Who do I ask? Who cares? Do I need to hire a consulting firm to even help me get those answers? I think I've witnessed so much money spent just arriving at why we're doing things.
yeah, yeah,
But for me, it comes down to what I would say is like just normal every day, but brought into the workplace. Stopping and getting a true perspective.
mm,
Get a perspective of supply chain. Get the perspective of finance. Get the perspective of procurement. Get the perspective of the journey of a product. Get the perspective of, I mean, we all talk about the journey of a customer, but my experience is we talk about the funnel, or we talk about the cost, of reaching out to them repeatedly, and closing on the client versus the actual journey of a customer signing themselves up. And
Hmm.
how does that experience? What if they sign up the second or third time? How are we rationalizing their account? What's their experience? And I feel personally, I've witnessed that it's the typical silo game, right? Where you have the customer care team
Yeah.
sits independent of the data team who's responsible for the customer master, but not cohabitating. So it's really stepping back and being able to actually ask the perspective and ask it truly. Watch them, do interview, not just interviews. Watch them, a day in the life of these folks. Talk to them about what are they paid on? What's really important to you? Because when we really stop to think about it, what I've experienced is like in the case of a customer master example, the positive ROI commitment of the customer master often contradicts
Yeah.
what the people on the ground are actually paid for. So you are by design creating a conflict of success
Yeah.
because you haven't stopped to ask those perspectives. And I truly believe that you can bring it all together if you at least have the information on the table to the point that you're making too, right? And then from there, you listen to the perspective, gain that experience. Even if you've only just started working for a company, I always come in and act like I've been there for 15 years. Be that person who's struggled through the years of no technology, but got that job done, right? The catalog, the customers who used to call and complain because they didn't get their shipment for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The people who have been there. And I truly feel like when you gain that perspective of the people who are brand new, the people who've been there a long time, the top, the bottom, but you build it in a way that is focused on the domain or whatever exactly you're going after. I think it really builds that experience that you can then actually say, here's what I think are some of the right decisions. And then what that does would feed your entire theory, and your entire process. And then that, to me, almost automatically qualifies the adoption because you could pull a string, right? We
Yeah.
interviewed, I built the experience, trust me. I'm helping you to come up with which decisions are critical, most important. And then it just circles back around and it makes it that much easier. People are resistant because it takes time. It takes time to have those meetings. They have to step away from their regular jobs to talk about their regular jobs. And I often say I usually am a therapist. I give them about a 30 to an hour, you know, tell me the woes, tell me the pros, the cons, but I am gleaning from that what would go into, where I hear their priorities, almost like a doctor. So,
Yeah, see, one of the challenge I can share with you as well. You can also comment on it that the more we bring analytics, I think the more threat we bring to the people that your job is going to go away. So I always tell people it's not going to happen. There are We are still unable to fix the parking problem. We are unable to fix the traffic problem. Don't you think that there are so many things to do in an organization? So whenever I give a talk anywhere, I always say that, hey, if you automate, your job is not going to go away. There are many more things you can achieve. So do you see that fear factor into organizations, that people are fear, especially agentic AI, when it came in, it is screwing everyone
yeah.
that, hey, it is going to take all your jobs. I told them, no, it's a work. So traditionally, there's a master node, there's a working node. Agentic AI will always be a working node. You guys will still be master nodes. So, which kind of experiences you have in this perspective?
Yes. So I have, I see it. I've heard it. Mostly it goes as like passive, you can witness resistance because you could
Yeah.
tell, like, I try always to put myself in someone's shoes when I feel that resistance. And what I've found is, at least in the space that I exist, most people didn't sign up to manage spreadsheets. Most people didn't sign up, didn't go to school to be a merchandiser,
Hmm.
to now be managing line plans and the data that's required in order to properly sell on e-commerce. They just, frankly, they went to school to be creative, to come up with new ideas, to even sustainability, right? Some people are in the business of making things truly sustainable. But you know what the job requires right now? Spreadsheet management, regulatory registration, understanding who to call in the org when things are not compliant. There are so many jobs out there that aren't fruitful, in my opinion, for the mind. And
Hmm.
so there's, whenever I am faced with like that fear, I often ask the question, what did you go to school for? What did you aspire to do at this organization, right? And again, I have the luxury of not just working in the tech space. I have the luxury of working also, as that cross-functional between the business and tech. But even in the tech, most architects didn't come to the data space to just be crunching pipelines and in the doldrums of a project that can never get live, right? No, they came to improve throughput and to make models that will make the organization that much better. I mean, that's enterprise architecture was literally established just to make it so we didn't have to talk about the same things over
Yeah.
and over and over, right?
True.
So my experience, and I fully agree with you, AI cannot replace the human ingenuity, but my opinion is most consumer, like, and I hate to go this far, but consumerism is, we've got such a repeatable expectation that things are exactly where they are going to be, and companies struggle to be repeatable.
Yeah.
Most of these people are it takes moving mountains sometimes to get the same data every time. And so that's to me where I can share with someone. Like right now we're working with the Flex tool, a little plug for the Flex tool. I'm super excited because we're bringing in an AI component that's going to read CADs and spit out structured data, which to me is such a value in term. But the people who made the CAD aren't going away. The
Yeah.
people who validate that actually put the data where it needed to go and gave it context, right? That lavender was lavender, not purple, or those people. But they can be more creative and they can be more involved truly in making more products, making better products, and more the contextual side of things, I would say. So yeah, I agree with you. Like the fear is there,
Here's yeah.
but that's always my approach. It's like, what do you actually want to do? You definitely didn't sign up to be a spreadsheet pusher. Come on.
See, the output, right? The people normally who are working on the Excel, they just crunch the number, they massage it, and they pass it to the next party. They don't care how it works. So coming back to our this, I really want to spell out this where decision actually breaks down. You just mentioned that four principles you have. Can we
Yes.
categorically mention that for our audience? What you're referring?
Yes, 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 yes. So a handful of the conversation that I wanted to bring up was, talking about the types of projects coming in 3-4 weeks before UAT and things feel like they're about to fall off the rails. And
Yeah.
why is that? And so as I think about my pattern that I've been deploying successfully on these projects, if I'm asked what would I do in the first 30 days on a project, first key, understand everyone's perspective. Critical. And the way that I do that is different modalities. I've used design thinking. I've used, like I said, interviewing. Clearly, everybody knows to get in a room, tell us what your requirements are, tell us what your experience is. But I truly believe coming in with a little bit of a different approach makes it so people are more receptive and also more open.
Hmm.
I also don't try to conflate my perspective with their perspective. Just because I've seen supply chain, just because I've seen many SAP deployments, doesn't mean I'm going to come in and say, oh, I know SAP. No, no. You know why? Because while SAP has boundaries, I've never seen any one SAP deployment used the exact same way. Never.
Always customization. Yes.
Right? But and even within the customizations, the way finance uses it, plus outputs and does whatever they have to do in order to make it work. I never come in thinking that I understand their perspective. I may establish like some boundaries. You don't have to explain supply chain to me. You don't need to explain what e-commerce is. I know what SAP does, right? But I listen to their perspective. Jane Doe, has been at the company for 15 years. She hasn't been able to retire because this project will never go live. And she's complaining, but she's also her own enemy, right? But I would, again, listening, not disqualifying her perspective, because there is some fear in there that is warranted. There's a reason why she hasn't felt confident to hand this over. And sometimes when I listen to that perspective, I find the silver bullet, right? Whether it's because that lady has been keeping it close to the chest or because no one thought to just stop and listen. So really, truly stopping and listening to a perspective, getting the perspective not of just who is exactly involved in your project, but who are peripheral, stakeholders. And I will say, oftentimes you got to go an extra mile. You have to do meetings that your main, if you would, your main SOW doesn't drive towards.
Yeah.
And it's incrementally positive for you because you're getting external perspective. You're getting internal perspective. Of course, you're going to even interviewing your own person that you're reporting to, but interviewing from a different perspective, right? What challenges have you faced? Why did you need me? Right? And so gaining a lot of that. Then the next part that I was talking about is experience. Experience can be the experience you bring to the table, but also the experience that you're collating through all of that different perspective that you're gaining, right? The experience, of course, you need to bring to the table that you will approach something a little different, but you're also gaining, like I had mentioned before, come in and build up your resume through all the perspective you're gaining to become the experience when I know what you went through 15 years ago. You're not getting hit, because oftentimes those SAP deployments that we need to migrate from, those decisions were made 15, 20 years ago, right? And so if you if you ignore them, if you just glaze over them, then you yourself are losing experiential credibility, if you will, right? From the people who are the ones you need the buy-in from, always. Then next is being able to help people find the decision that is the better choice. And my experience has been also that there's multiple ways to do projects within data. I'm bringing that up because, like you had mentioned, let's say we need to build a data model for a particular set of data. There are industry standards. There are things that we can base off of. But again, there are a lot of ways to do it, depending on the tools you've got, depending on the process you're solving, depending on the outcomes you're looking for. You might build a taxonomy that's got 3 levels versus 5, and one is industry standard, one is very custom to how they merchandise, whatever, right? And so I have also found that oftentimes tech teams are willing to push through a decision. Okay, yes, it's going to
Yeah.
meet the technical requirement.
Yeah.
Passively, the business is just being brought along, right? And so helping them to reiterate the decisions that have been made and getting their buy-in, even if, and I it sounds crazy, but I've come in the last leg of a project and presented the solution as if it's not built,
Hmm.
and that the business arrived. Yep, that looks like what we need. They had not been able to agree for 6 months, circling, circling, circling. But the minute I presented it as if it wasn't already done, because they hadn't heard that it was done, right? They then were open to seeing, okay, this is my decision as well. I'm doing it together. So helping formulate those decisions as a collective, not just, allowing technology to passively bring business and then complain because they're not adopting or not buying into it, right? And then the last one is around adoption. My experience is you put these three things in place. In perspective, you're going to get pushback from IT. We already know. You don't need to, I don't need to tell you again, go read the document. You
Yeah.
need to slow them down, right? You need to slow them down. I understand you wrote it this way, but give me context. Why did we go with this instead of that? What do you understand versus have you talked, like who in the business has seen this, right? All of those kinds of things. And then, as I mentioned before, the perspective. Then bringing that experience, you're building credibility, but in a different way. Your experience as if you were them, your experience, obviously I'm going to compare this to a few other things, but doing that, helping with the decision. And then finally, like I said, the adoption kind of just sorts itself out. And I can't explain it. All I could do is show it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I will say that doing that due diligence just did the same as your framework, where putting in the time to really qualify why we're doing things. And I feel like these four pillars, of course, adoption being a freebie if you've done it right,
Yeah.
help in really, really bringing the teams together. And for me, really help the tools to get over that finish line to bringing folks in.
So yeah, actually, your four dimensions are actually part of in my canvas, and
I
my canvas, yeah, it was not something which is new. I'm just pasting in your LinkedIn my article. It's all the same thing actually. Reason being, so how I came up, the question is how I came up with this canvas. So I meet a lot of people, right? Like I'm meeting you. So in last 1.5 years, I met so many people across the globe. As I mentioned, people from 35 plus countries, and people are doing an amazing job. Like these, your four dimensions are amazing, right? And you have to do it right upfront, right? When you say business didn't know like 6 months, because nobody went and tell business, hey, what's your decision? So, that is where I'm saying that actions are something which are decisions, and then character comes, which is stakeholders, who is doing decisions and what actions they are going to take on it. That you have to tell right even before you start building a solution proposal. You need this canvas to be agreed by all businesses, right? If you're able to open it, you might have seen it, right? So you have this questions, answers, actions, stakeholders. You have the context, you have the value, you have the TTM, you have the ROI, you have the cost of inaction. Actually, cost of inaction is also one of the very major things, because sometimes what happens, you don't have a dollar value to generate value, but you have
yeah,
a cost of inaction. And right now in the agentic era, everyone is going towards regulatory bodies, penalties. So that is where
yeah,
I'm saying, can you believe that I'm seeing in RFPs to build data governance framework? Can you believe that? Data
yeah.
governance framework is not a project, it's a program. Guys, try to understand it's a program.
I
There
know.
cannot be a deliverable about data governance, right? So when these Actually, I got three RFPs, one from Pakistan, one from Malaysia, one from Saudi Arabia, and they wanted my advisory services into it. So I told them,
Yeah.
I rejected them. I said, sorry, I'm not going to do it because data governance framework is a program. So you have to have your in-house team, businesses all sit together into workshops to find out your critical elements. They said, hey, as part of the RFE, you see their line, they say, you only need to give us 1,000 critical element. That's all. Only. I said, what do you mean by only? One critical element takes one workshop. So
Yeah.
I replied these guys, sorry, I don't want to jump into it because there is no end. Give me $5 million, I may end up picking up your team. And it takes 16 to 20 months to do it. But
Yeah.
my advice to you, go hire one or two advisors, start doing the advisories, as you correctly mentioned, start meeting people, go onto your desk, see what they are doing, how they are doing, what
Right.
decisions there, and then build your base and then go from there. So I absolutely agree with you that those four dimensions or principles are absolutely matching with you. I'm happy for that. That those
Yeah.
are is matching, right? So we have, by the way, we have a time check of 4 minutes. Do you have a hard stop? I don't have a hard stop.
I don't. I don't. But we can also end. So I don't have
I'm
a hard
fine.
stop here.
It's a Saturday over here. Actually, when I set your session, this gave me an idea because it was always difficult for me to get hold of US people. Because my
Yeah.
traditional podcast is my Friday, 6 p.m. Every Friday, I have that. But I cannot
Yeah.
catch US people. So, but this
Yeah.
time is very good because it's the end of the day for you and it's
Yeah.
Saturday for me. I'm going to plan a lot. So, good.
Yeah.
We
You might
start.
just have to send. You might just have to send someone a beer so they miss the happy hour on a Friday night. Who
Oh,
cares?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Friday night.
But it's okay. I mean, I did my kids' sports. I came home, got everybody settled. I do agree with you. It's a for people who are passionate about this, it's worth it. It's
No, no,
perfectly worth it.
we can always do 5 p.m. or 4 p.m. your time,
Yeah.
and that will become my 7 or 8 a.m. in the morning, which I'm
Yeah,
fine.
it was bad for me because my kids, but for the single, nice, no
Okay,
kids in the sports, but yeah, yeah.
okay, awesome. As we don't have a hard stop, I want to ask a couple more things for you because you are very
Yeah.
much practically into it. Because the challenge which I say is value-driven projects and KPI-driven projects. I'm also
Yeah.
seeing these when I say KPI driven, hey, my management says and my organization says that, hey, we need to look good in front of the whole world. Let's do agentic AI. And
Yeah.
this year we need every department, we need at least one agentic AI, and they have nothing in their. Do you see this?
Oh my
Do you
God.
see this?
Yes. And it's the same as when everybody was doing RPA, like
Yes,
all of the
yes.
robotic processing projects. And I was working for Genpact and we're doing an RPA project and we're evaluating the processes across everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, just do one and figure
Yeah,
out if it even works.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, it's happening.
And it is very difficult to convince them that, hey, what you are doing, please crash it and do some valuable
Right.
stuff. Okay, now let's go towards data quality. Because when we talk about that decision, why decision fails, one of the again biggest challenge is data quality, and people normally want to do data quality big bang, right? It's a very expensive project to do it, or it's actually for me, data quality is again a program. So how do you
Hmm.
see data quality is playing a role in project failures?
Yeah. So I had mentioned this at the beginning on my current project I'm on. What I have experienced is projects often take on the burden of data quality while going through data migration. And
Hmm.
it is up to the practitioners on really to define what they will be doing with the data as it's getting migrated.
Hmm.
Um, again, setting exactly clear boundaries. What is improving data by 95 to 95% completeness? Well, if none of our data has ever existed for this, we now need people to come fill in the data, call the suppliers, have it on this, have it on that. And oftentimes the people who are managing those processes, they bring a lot of company experience. They don't bring a lot of efficiency experience. So the example that I have going on right now, our executives believe that they committed to improved data quality pretty substantially. There's a team of 4 or 5 who've been hired. They've got a lot of business experience to fill in. But what I've found is during data migration, you need to move the data. So we need to make sure it's stable, transformed, improved just by design. You're moving to a new model. It by design is going to get improved, right?
Yeah.
More structured, more standards. Like just by design, you're improving data quality. If not 0.0, 0.1, right? Like the day after you turn the new tool on, typically you start to see data quality improvements if it's a decent project. Let me asterisk that. But what I found is where the challenge lies, if you don't have very clear definition on what that 95% quality would be, and is it going to be done by go live? If we like the example here that we've had is like there was a lot of velocity, and then in the last 3 to 4 weeks, when we're getting down to that last 10%, it starts to slow down, right? And that is when everybody is claws on, right? If you don't get that last 10% over the hump, it's as if you've done nothing. That's always like the experience. And then, the executives acting like they've done nothing, then it gets morale down, and it feels like it crashes all the data quality track out. So oftentimes, of course, like setting the standards, understanding who's going to pick up the bag of data quality after you go live on a project, because you may focus on critical data elements and get it as close to complete as possible. But there is a point of dissonance where getting it even more quality actually has a negative return if you go too far, right? And so helping to know where that point lands. Again, the business typically has operated without that data. So it's an executive saying, I want it to be 100%. And you're like, sir, we've never needed this data before. Don't you think these people should be working on something more valuable? How about we start working on the next attributes that we've never had before? So there's a lot of that negotiation around exactly what do we mean. There's typically a lot of education. I have come on projects where data quality means something so different to the executives than it means to me as a practitioner. And I've seen a lot of failed data quality work because data quality practitioners who don't have context and who can't tell a story, they often come in and fail, even if they've got the data clean. They because the executives just they don't see it the same way. To them,
Of course, for them, they do everything subjectively. It has to be objectively.
Yeah.
Data quality, as you mentioned, it's a huge thing, right? You cannot. So if you bring, I'm sure you are saying executive means who are engineers, right? You are referring to
Yeah.
engineers, right? Because when they study what is data quality, for them, data standardization is also data quality, which is if there are different type of dates are coming, it has to be same format. If there is a null, you have to set some value. If there's a special character, you do it. Teradata have dot 3 precisions, but Huawei product have dot 15 precision. These are all standards, right? Codes are
Yeah.
coming into multiple formats, spelling mistakes, blah blah. These are data for me. These are data standardization. And then you go
Yes.
towards data quality is how business, what business want. Again, we go back, what action you need to take. The action
Yeah.
is you need to do something. And when you need to do something, which level of quality you want, you only clean that. You don't clean
Yeah.
everything. And if you go one step back, you need to know the entities. So when you are doing a
True.
decision for which entities is generating an information to take a decision, you only need
Yeah.
to clean data for those entities. You don't need to clean everything, right? And it become a
Well,
back.
yeah. Yeah. My experience is data, like so many data projects, they set the big bang, and your goals for 5 to 10 years can be big bang.
Yeah,
But like the human experience, we need wins. We
yes,
need to feel success.
yes,
So and oftentimes, I think that human leadership, that momentum that's required, goes
yeah,
unthought of, right? And I think going back to what you're talking about, right? If you can paint the value, I want to increase invoice processing by XYZ, I can lead it back to, or let's say a regulatory compliance. We want to decrease our regulatory compliance by 95%. It should be very close to zero. What are the fields that are actually there? What
yeah.
entity does it live? You trace back. But once you've got that, it's hard to convince the people who are like,
Yeah,
keys
coding.
on the keyboard,
Yeah,
that, right? That the invoice, like that the regulatory compliance actually was impacted by the bad data. It's bananas, but convincing everyone that it's all interrelated, that is a real challenge. I feel executives will be like, done. Tell me
yeah,
where I sign up.
yes.
And then you pull out the covers and people are like, oh no, no, no.
No,
That data is related to that data is related. And there's no way we'll ever fix it, right? Or you get things like that. So those small wins where you can show the non-believers too. Hey, if you just take 2 hours, you could crunch 2,000 records. We could get this far, and it's almost like compounding interest, right? It seems like you're doing nothing, but when you've got 4 people working on 1,000 records a week and just churning and burning, you can make a really big dent pretty quickly. And then those same people start to get faster, start to think, how could I do this more thoughtfully, more creatively? And to me, that's how you make data quality successful, actually, is you find those kind of tools and tips and tricks. And then my own experience, though, is when you start making those wins, you get more work. So be
yeah.
careful what you ask for.
See, we need to tell, educate, as you mentioned, we also need to educate executive. I think that's a responsibility of a lead. As you correctly mentioned, small wins, which means people need to understand that these use cases might not be there in 2 years. You don't need to clean the data for next 10 years. Use cases will
Right.
go away, these products will shut down, you will have new projects. Dynamics of the world is changing so much nowadays that the ROI you can achieve from this data product might not be valid in next 2 years or maybe in 18 months. So do your thing to achieve goals in or for 12 to 18 months. Don't fix
Yeah.
something which have an ROI in next 4 years. That thing has gone. Those eras
Yeah.
are gone. Federated approach is
Well,
here. You will end up creating small data product which will last. I have seen projects which ROI is there for only 6 months. You go into trading, you go into stock. The ROI is 3 to 6 months. Replace, bring new. Now you have to go
yeah.
into agile data modeling where you can fix. things on the fly. So ROI and value keep coming in within weeks. Actually, I've seen companies who develop or change new use cases within 2 to 3 weeks. Can you believe that? Because their framework is so strong and mature, they have a complete information model there, which is nodes and links. All they have all entities, they have links, they have all attributes onto a wall or a big screen. And whenever new use case come, they say, "Hey, business, come and tell us in this whole information model which link or which entity can create a value." So they're playing like
Yeah.
that. I was surprised and amazed by the maturity of those things. So I think it's a responsibility of top management. So let me bring that last question. I won't take you
Yeah.
long. That when you bring these kind of decision at a C level, it goes into a board level. I'm a big advocate to change the JD of CDO because right now CDO is doing IT stuff. That's a problem. That's a failure. I want to bring CDO, Chief Data Officer, at a board level or at a somewhere there. When business want to do something, this guy or a girl tell that this role should tell that, hey, this is doable. And
Yeah.
business says, hey, my ROI need to be meet in, let's say, in 6 months. Then this person, this role should say, hey, we don't even have a data lake, we don't even have a warehouse, it's not going to happen. So
Yeah.
what do you think, bringing data folks right at a board level, what do you think, does this make sense, ring any bells?
Yes. Yes. I mean, so my 15-year plan was to be a CDO. Before it was something I knew, but as I started to realize where the CDO lives right now or where it
Right.
doesn't live in organizations, I was like, no way.
uh,
Because to me, as much as like a CFO is responsible for closing the books and also providing what is our budget for the next year, a CDO is responsible for monetizing data,
yes.
establishing standards of the organization, meeting industry standards, and even one could argue is accountable to every other board level. Every other one. They have a responsibility to the CFO. They have a responsibility to the chief operating officer from right, regulatory officer. All these other chief level positions who are being brought to the table because because of the priority. I 1000% agree that a CDO should be sitting at the CFO level. No, like no ifs, ands, or buts. Again, because of their accountability to the other levels, that if that role is under one of them, I've experienced this where the CDO was just under the CFO, and there was this dilemma of like, okay, my priorities are to give to finance,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
operating the COO is like struggling to know what his operation costs are on their product life cycle, and I know I can help them, right? So what it ends up forming, if you don't have it at the right level, is these pockets of data programs that never have a single vision for
Yeah.
the organization's positive impact. Whether that is, again, it's like the strategy of where an organization is going. And again, I mentioned this earlier. If you've got competing priorities and a lot of different perspectives on why, that's where things you spend redundant money, and companies don't need to be wasting that without a, I think it's happening because there's no vision, truly, and again, like I said, they're responsible to the other stakeholders, but in addition to that, there is a value, just like a chief product officer, to monetize the work that you are doing to standardize your products. I think I was working with Honeywell. They're a massive company that makes products that are on nodes for electronics and all of this. And they had a large endeavor to standardize the data coming out of the nodes, right?
Mm.
Period. But then someone so brilliant, hands down, like, why not? pay for that project because you're going to monetize it. You're going
Yeah.
to turn around and sell it. But if you don't have a CDO sitting at a level to be able to tell that story of how we're going to profit off of the projects we're doing, I
Hmm.
truly, truly believe it's the reason why organizations just they fail at data. In my opinion, most companies are failing at data. So there's
Absolutely.
that.
And as you mentioned that CDO role, yes, Gartner or someone survey says CDO role, the guy leave, a girl leave within 18 to 24 months. That is what the
Yeah,
max. Reason being they are under someone's agenda. If they are under
yeah,
CFO, they need to save money. If they're under COO, they need to automate things. If they're under CEO, they need to build a data product which can monetize. So what this guy
yeah,
do? Whatever this guy or girl do, the other is not happy. By right,
yeah.
this role need to come CFO, CEO, CFO, CEO, right with them, and now you give an agenda to this person that hey, your role is to make sure that operational guy you build something to support operational guy under the budget which CFO has. So at a
Correct.
same level, right?
Yes.
Not underneath. That's what my
Correct.
thought process is.
I I 1,000,000% agree. And because everybody needs data
Yes,
and a vision for how to deliver that needs needs a chief. And a chief who can hold their executives accountable, hold their stakeholders accountable,
yes,
right? Hey, Mr. CFO, I didn't tell you that I would deliver world hunger. I told you I'd deliver a better processing
yeah,
of closing your books, right? That's more compliant and more regulatory, more controlled. But when it's under, they can't ever speak back, right? Because if you speak back, then you lose the job.
yeah.
It's I one
And that's what's
thousand
happening.
percent.
Actually, that is what
Yeah.
happening. And last piece which I would like to add it here is which I see everywhere. Another one of the biggest reason for CDOs to fail is because they are not from a data background. I'm not sure you will be able to answer this or not because whenever I ask any industry leaders, they are a little bit reluctant and they don't want to give an answer. But I am a big advocate that if CDO is there, that CDO has to be data background person. You cannot have a chief data officer who doesn't know what is a cluster, who doesn't know what is a partitioning, who doesn't know what is a data modeling, what is the importance of data governance, lineage. I keep going up. What is the taxonomies? What is the information modeling?
Yeah.
What are the decisions? So I keep it. The person need to come from a journey that he has a background. Then I think this guy can or girl can really tell, hey, CFO and CEO, I can build something for you because there's a best practice happening in the world. There's a data vault, there's a focal, there's an anchor, there's a 3NF, there's a star schema. There are so many practices in the market. If this CDO will rely on a vendor or a consultancy company, everyone have their vested interest.
I
Everyone.
know. I
So this
agree. I
person. So what
agree.
do you think? So last question to you. What do you think?
Yes.
CDO
No,
needs
I
data background.
I fully agree. But the definition of a data background is different to different
Yeah,
people, right?
yeah.
Because somebody growing through a Teradata as a developer who became an architect, who became a leader, is very different than someone who can functionally understand why
Yeah.
data should be modeled the way that it should be. But you can't also have someone who's so conceptually in taxonomy land or governance land that you can't speak to an architect, right? Because the criticality of success also includes throughput, the technology we're choosing, the
Yes.
way we're transforming, the way we're optimizing our entire data ecosystem, right? So
Yeah.
you have to be able to speak on all of those
Yes,
dimensions
yes, yes,
and in a way that resonates with a CEO, with a board, depending on the type of company you work for. If you're owned by a holding company, data is now on the table as an asset,
yes,
right? That
yes,
that is part of the purchasing strategy. And if your data is a mess, it is no longer a positive, right?
yeah,
But I've also witnessed companies without that, relying on vendors to tell them how they will consolidate ERPs. It's
Yeah.
not that complicated. I don't. I may be a problem child, but it isn't $50 million worth of complicated.
Nice, not.
Uh, it's not. And I've seen companies, my own personal experience, where a company was struggling to keep the entire workforce, but was willing to pay that amount of money because they didn't know how to do it themselves and had to put the brake. I mean, there were three of us that built, we got to pump the brakes. This doesn't make any sense, but I agree with you. The chief data officer has to have all of those pillars, and that's
Yes.
why finding a great chief data officer is hard.
So
It's hard.
there is someone called Sydney Gale sitting in US.
I
So anyone who is
one
here,
day,
Sydney is there. CDRO. Thanks,
one day,
Sydney. It was a pleasure
yeah,
talking to you. I have a group for ladies from a data world. I'm planning a podcast series with them. I will add
awesome.
you into that chat group as well on LinkedIn, and let's see how it goes. It was pleasure again, Sydney. I think love to hear your perspectives, people uh, from US. I'm sitting here, and your four principles, which absolutely maps with my canvas. And I hope we can have this session again in a year time. Normally, I book people 1 year next year as well. So I will book you
Well, I
next year
have a
as
lot
well.
of other topics, so I'm
So,
happy to jump in.
yeah,
Um, just a quick closing statement. Like
yeah, please, please.
if there's one thing I'd leave people with, who are in the AI or any of these really technical areas within data, most data and AI programs don't struggle because of bad tools or bad talent, right? We're
Yeah.
all trying to get ourselves the most information, but they struggle when you have to stop to listen. They struggle when, folks have thought to not invite that extra person or haven't taken the time to talk to the squeaky wheel and hear that perspective. I did bring up the 4 factors of success, but I would just urge people to remember that the reason why data exists is because there are people in the world who either are creating it or are using it, right? Don't we can't If we ever lose that factor and just think it's about numbers and velocity, then I think we've really missed the point. And so, I hope I've given some tools, Mustafa. I've learned so much from you, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you soon.
No, pleasure. Thank you so much again. And we will see you again next time. Thank you.
Sounds good.